How do I stop food noise? That is a question that I get asked all of the time. And it's such a fair question because obviously, if you struggle with food noise, it is relentless, it is loud, it is consuming, and you want it to stop. However, something that I want you to think about is if you continue to ask a question and you are not getting anywhere with that question. Now, there's a difference between not getting anywhere with that question versus not wanting to hear what the answer is to that question, right? Like the other day, I went to the doctor. I asked what's wrong with my daughter. She's so irritable. What's going on? They told me she had a double ear infection. I didn't want to hear that. That is very different than just not getting anywhere and me asking and asking and asking. Let's say I'm asking all of these different doctors, what's wrong? And all of them are kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm not really getting anywhere with that. Okay. So when we're not getting anywhere, this is where I say we have got to switch up the question. Hi, I am Ryan. If you are new here, I am a licensed therapist who specializes in binge eating. If you are familiar with me, welcome back. Let's keep unpacking some of this stuff because it's very nuanced. Am I going to solve all of this in this episode? Absolutely not. But my goal is to help you get a new question, to start getting better answers so that you can understand why that food noise is there and then start moving forward, like start getting things in motion so that we can begin quieting that. Okay. So when I say we need to switch up the question, I always think that a good default is why. Like, why can't I stop thinking about food? Why is it so hard for me to stop thinking about food? Why is my brain so loud? My only hang up with the why question is that sometimes you can ask it in a really judgy way. And if you're asking it in a judgy way versus a curious way, well, it's just gonna make you feel like shit, and that's not gonna be very helpful. It's gonna make you focus on all the things that you're doing wrong rather than get you answers and expand your view on what's actually going on. I think that the why question can be a really good starting off point, especially because it's really natural to ask why. If you do ask why, just make sure it's from a very curious, I am genuinely wondering kind of way. What I think the absolute best question to ask is a what question. What questions immediately make you curious? And to me, I feel like they really get you thinking about different points and different perspectives that just help you see everything. So what I mean by that is, what is this noise trying to tell me? Or maybe what is the noise trying to distract me from? What is comforting about the noise? What feels scary about not thinking about food? Things like that really just get your wheels turning, which is what we're trying to do here, is to just start to look at what is actually going on so we can get answers and then we know what to do. We know how to tackle it. Now, as you ask these questions, you might not know the answers, and that's okay. For many of you, you've never asked questions like this before. So it's a practice to start getting curious. It's a practice to start digging deeper. It's also really hard to just think about deep things when you're not in a headspace to. So if you are driving or walking or listening to me while you're folding laundry or whatever the case may be, like you're just not in a state of mind to do some deep reflecting, that is so fine. That's so okay. If you give yourself space to reflect and slow down and you still find yourself blocked, what I notice with that is that we're trying to find the right answer instead of just getting a answer. And so whenever you feel blocked when it comes to any kind of reflection or question like that, I absolutely love to ask, if I was to guess, what would I say? Because that really breaks you through the perfectionism of trying to find the right answer and just getting a answer. Okay, but right now it's so fine that you don't have an answer because we're going to unpack, and I wonder if after this episode you might have a better idea. Now, before we start unpacking, I would just love for you to think about, what would life be like without food noise? And I know that your thought might be, it would be amazing, it would be so freeing, it would be so liberating. You just think of like quick little positive things, which is great, which is amazing, but I would love for us to get a little bit more tangible. I would love for us to go a little bit deeper. What I mean by that is, if you weren't using all of this energy thinking about food, what would you use that energy for? If you didn't spend all this time thinking about food, what would you spend that energy on? For some of you, that immediately might bring up a lot of excitement. for most of you, the thought of that is probably going to bring up a lot of fear and discomfort. If you started thinking about that and you immediately started feeling uncomfortable, overwhelmed, anxious, that gives us answers right there. Because what does that tell us? If the thought of not having food noise feels scary to you, that tells us that that food noise is serving a purpose in your life. It's doing something for you. It's protecting you in some way. It's keeping you safe in some way. Now, that then makes sense why it's so hard to stop thinking about food, because if it's doing something for you, if it's serving a purpose in your life, then you're not going to be able to just stop it without getting those needs met. And that's exactly what we need to unpack. Before we even go there, though, I do have to say, this is so important. I need you guys to hear me on this. It does not matter how much healing work you do, how much mindset work you do, how much therapy you do, how much reading you do, how much learning you do on any of this stuff. If you are not eating enough, you will continue to think about food. That is just a part of the way that humans are wired. And thank God for that. Can you imagine if we didn't think about food when we got hungry? We would go days without eating. We just wouldn't eat. We have to eat to stay alive. So us thinking about food when we get hungry is a very, very normal thing. That obviously gets louder and exacerbated the more you restrict, the more you deny yourself of food, the more you cut things out. But I have to say, because I see so many people do so much work around this, but the one thing that they're not willing to do is eat more, which, you know, doesn't mean that the work that they're doing is for nothing. But what I am saying is that, is it really fair of you to be frustrated that you're still thinking about food when you're not eating enough? No. It's not fair. You are going to continue thinking about food if you're not eating enough. Like, it's just how it is. It's just going to happen. So if you want to quiet the noise, the very first thing we have to do is make sure that you are eating enough. So now that we have that down, and now that we know the very, very first most important thing is to make sure that you're eating enough, there are two really big things that keep the noise loud that we have to unpack that really is going to help you understand what the purpose the noise is serving in your life. So the very first thing that I think all of us can relate to, if we're being honest, because in a way we're all cut from the same cloth, is thinking about food gives you a false sense of control. Like, it really does, okay? Because if you're thinking about food, it feels like you are either in control of your body, which might make you feel in control of your life. If you are thinking about food that's very predictable, you can keep it the same, which can be really comforting if there are a lot of elements in your life that are not predictable, that are not the same, that you don't have control over. And it also gives you a false sense of control over your identity. If you are seen as the disciplined one, the fit one, the healthy one, or you would like to be seen that way, well, you thinking about food feels like you are making sure that you are doing what you need to do to be that person. So when we think about, if you're not thinking about food, what are you going to think about? And that brings up discomfort for you. If you are using food as a way to control, whether that is control something when so many other elements of your life feel out of your control your body, which you tell yourself is going to fix all of your problems, or control your identity, then of course the thought of not thinking about food is going to feel really scary, because how are you going to control those things if you're not thinking about food? Right? Answers. Okay, then the second thing is that thinking about food is a way that you distract yourself from feeling emotions. Whether it is thinking about food gives me something else to think about, or food is the only thing that soothes, comforts, give me joy. So of course, anytime that I feel uncomfortable, which as a human being is a lot of times, a lot of times throughout the day, a lot of times throughout the week, a lot of times throughout your life, then yeah, you're going to be thinking about food. You're going to be thinking about the thing that's going to take this away, that's going to make you feel better. So then if you're not thinking about food, if we go back to that question, if you're not thinking about food and that brings up discomfort for you, because if you're not thinking about food, then what are you going to do with all of these emotions? And if you're not thinking about food, then you have to think about the thing that you're distracting yourself from. Oh, we don't want to do that. No, thank you. I would rather not, right? Okay, more answers. Now, this is so important because as we get these answers, you see, wait a minute, is it really the food that's the problem? Is it really even the food that's making me think about food? No, there are so many other elements. I mean, sure, if you are not eating enough, then yeah, you're going to be thinking about food and that actually has to do with the food. But I would take a step back and say, why aren't you eating enough in the first place? And I doubt that actually has to do with the food. So then again, we're right back on the food noise is really not about the food at all. And I just want to validate how normal it is and how common it is to feel all of these fears and have all of this discomfort come up when you think about not thinking about food anymore, which feels really counterintuitive because it's controlling you, it's consuming you. You don't want to think about food anymore. But then in a way, it's really comforting. It's what you know. It gives you something. So the thought of not thinking about food can feel really scary. So when it comes to food noise, I really want you to start thinking about it as a radio rather than a light switch. I think that so many people see it as a light switch. It's either on or it's off. And then it feels like, how am I ever going to be able to turn this off? When I really would rather you start looking at it as a radio where there are different volume levels, because you are always going to think about food. What I mean is that you're not going to get to a place where you never have a food thought ever again, because it is human nature to think about food when you're hungry. We also have food all around us all of the time. So yeah, you're going to think about food. But when we think about it like a radio, okay, we can play the radio and be having a conversation with our friends and hear the radio. Like I can hear what's going on with the radio, but maybe I don't necessarily know what it's saying because it's so quiet and I'm so immersed in this conversation, but it's still playing. It's still there. And if I stop talking and I really focus on that radio, I could probably hear what it has to say, but I would have to stop talking and I would have to consciously listen to that. That is the goal, that we are turning the volume down. And when there are moments where the volume gets turned up, we just start to get curious. Whoa, what just turned that volume up? What happened there? What's going to help me turn it back down? And in a way, that also feels a lot more comforting, because then you can look at the fact that you're not going to just go from all this food noise to a completely silent brain, which is what you're freaking out about right now, if we're being honest, right? What is going to happen is you start doing this healing work and it starts getting a little bit quieter, a little bit quieter, a little bit quieter. It is gradual over time. So as it starts getting quieter and quieter, you're a lot more comfortable with that. So as I said in the beginning, one of the best places to start when you find yourself stuck on anything. I mean, yeah, we're talking about food noise here, but you can apply this to anything. When you're not getting anywhere with what you're asking, I think the very first thing to just be honest about is, am I open to hearing what the person has to say? Because a lot of times we are getting the answers, but we're just not willing to hear them. But when we are willing to hear them and it's still not helping, then I say, let's ask different questions. It's so natural to have why be your next question. I think a why question can be really helpful. Just make sure that when you ask a why question, why am I still thinking about food? Why is this so hard for me? You're asking it in a very curious way, like I'm just trying to understand. I think Dr. Becky Kennedy, on one of her podcasts, she said, it's impossible to be curious and critical at the same time. I loved that so much. And she said, one of the best ways to pull yourself out of criticism is to say, I wonder. I love that so much. So asking why, but then also I think the best question that we can ask are what questions? What is this food noise doing for me? What is this noise trying to tell me? Maybe what it's trying to tell me is that I'm hungry and I need to eat more. And what it's doing for me is it's helping me stay alive. Maybe what it's trying to tell me is I don't want to sit with this emotion right now. And maybe what it's doing for me is it's giving me a really easy way to distract myself from that. Maybe what it's telling me is that life feels way chaotic right now and that's really hard for me. And so what this is doing for me is it's giving me something that feels like I can control when so many elements of my life feel out of my control. When you're asking these questions, there's really no right or wrong answer. It's not that you need to find the golden ticket answer to unlock the thing that's going to heal you. We are just looking for answers, different answers, more answers. Now, with those answers, this is so important because I see so many people getting stuck here. When you get answers, they are just answers. They do not change anything. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're driving and all of a sudden one of the icons on your dashboard lights up. Oh my God, I've never seen that light before. I don't know what that means. So you go into your glove box, you grab the manual, you open it up, and you realize, oh my gosh, that light means that my tire is low on air. Okay, so now I figured out what it means. I now have the answer. Okay, one of my tires needs more air. That doesn't mean that my tire now instantly has more air. It means that I have the answer. And now with that answer, I can figure out what to do in a way that's a lot more intentional. Because I could be messing around under the hood when the problem has nothing to do with the engine. It's with my tire. So I'm spending all this time under the hood, messing with the engine, spending all this money on the engine. But the problem was the tire. Okay, so the answers help us take better, more aligned action, but we still have to take that action. Now, where I see so many of you guys go from 0 to 100 here, because you're all go-getters, which I love and is so amazing, and I admire that about you. But respectfully chill out and give yourself some space and time to just explore this before you start diving into all this action. Right now, just get curious. Whether it's with a notebook or a note in your phone, you just have open for any time you realize something, you think about something, you get an answer for something, just start taking notes on that, because the more answers you have, the easier it's going to be to know what to do, to take the next step. And once you start taking the steps, that's when things start changing. And when things start changing, it's not a switch, it doesn't turn off, but the volume starts to turn down, which is amazing, because as cheesy as this is going to sound, but this is really why we're here, right? The volume of the food turns down, the volume of your life turns up. And I would argue that that is the freaking point. Oh, you guys, welcome to our coffee chat. Cheers. I need it. But how are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling? How was your week? Let me know. I love hearing from you guys. This has been such a week. I feel like I am being tested in every area right now, especially with my daughter. We went to Florida. It was great. It was also a lot. She is, bless her heart, I love her so much, so defiant. Like, I know that toddlers, 2-year-olds, like tantrums, those things are normal and typical and very developmental. I feel like she's like more defiant than most kids. And sometimes I feel like I'm so weak as a mom. I'm like, why can't I handle this? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, other moms seem fine, and I'm so not fine. She is so hard right now, which is funny because I know last week I was saying things are getting easier. Let me tell you, I was brutally humbled this week. I really, truly was. I was so humbled. But that's okay. We are getting through it. I will say that, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Like, all of the healing work that you do when you're healing your relationship with food starts with the food, and then it transfers over to all these different areas of your life. So this morning, I was feeling so overwhelmed because Charlotte woke up at 6. She just woke up irritable, cranky, like everything was wrong. And I usually go for a walk with Jack in the morning because she woke up. I was like, I'm already up. My husband is sleeping. Like, let me just take her. So I was like, I'm not gonna miss out on my walk. I really need this right now. So got her milk, got her waffle. I put her in the stroller. Thankfully, she really likes the stroller to an extent. And we went for a walk, and that was so nice. And then we got back home, and I just have a really busy week. Like, I have a lot going on. I have a lot of different calls. I have a lot of tasks to do. And so as I was getting her ready for school, I turned to my husband and I was like, what time do you have to be at work? And he said, whatever time, which gave him enough time to take her to daycare. And so I was like, can you take her to daycare? I'm usually the one that takes her to daycare. I have a really flexible schedule, so it just works. Today though, I needed that extra 45 minutes because from like start to finish, it really takes 45 minutes. And he was like, yeah. And the thing is that old me would have never asked for that. I would have been like, it's fine, it's not a big deal, I can do it. And then the way that he said yeah, he didn't say it excited because like he wasn't planning on taking her to daycare, like it's 45 minutes out of his morning. I could have been like, oh my gosh, now he's mad at me, I'm being such a burden. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to make it mean that. I wasn't excited to take her to daycare. He wasn't excited to take her to daycare. That's fine. That's fine. But I'm also allowed to ask for help. I'm allowed to delegate. I'm allowed to do that. Doesn't make me a bad mom. It doesn't mean that I'm being too much. And you guys, guess what happened? Because he took her to daycare, I got to make my breakfast in quiet. I got to sit down here and eat it while it was hot without her crawling all over me. It was so amazing. And the trajectory of my day is totally different now just because I asked for him to help. Like, that's such a small thing that makes such a big difference. And I think that when it comes to asking for things, it's so easy for us because we're all so similar, right? To be like, it's not that big of a deal, it's fine. And maybe like one or two things, like at first it feels like not that big of a deal, but then you compound all of these different things and it becomes a big deal. It becomes a big deal that you then are feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to explode. I'm feeling all this resentment. Like I need a release. I'm so angry. When it's like, of course you are. Of course you are. You say yes to everything and you don't have to. That's what I keep telling myself. I'm like, you don't have to say yes to this. You do not have to say yes to this. And if you do say yes to this, own it. Own it. Don't be mad about it. Because if you say yes and then you're mad about it, that's so silly. That's so silly. That's just wasted energy. So either say yes and own it, or delegate and don't feel bad about it. Because if I said take her to daycare and then I spent the next 15 minutes feeling bad and shaming myself because I'm being a burden, I'm inconveniencing him, or whatever wild thing my brain wants to tell me, then why did I even have him take her to daycare? I'm not even getting to enjoy my morning, right? Like that was the whole freaking point. So anyways, that's just something that I've been thinking about lately, especially as we're in this phase of just tough stuff. Florida was good, Florida was fun, 5 days was more than perfect. I really thought that 5 days wasn't gonna be enough. It was more than enough. 5 days at the beach with the toddler was a lot. On day 3, Charlotte threw her passies everywhere. She just has passies at night. And she threw her passies, being defiant, being angry, she threw it. And the way that the beds was set up, there were 2 bunk beds in the room that she was in. And she threw it behind the bunk bed and we couldn't get to it. So it was like, okay, passies are gone. So we went one night with no passies, and then the next night she was screaming, and my husband was like, I can't take it anymore, and then went to Publix and got her more passies, but they didn't have the passy that she normally has, but she was fine with the new passy. Anyways, long story short, we really need to get rid of the passies. Thankfully, she just has it at night, and she's really not that attached to it, but she does like it when she goes to sleep. So if you have any advice on getting rid of passies, if it's just cold turkey, cut off the tops, do you start with a small hole and then go bigger? Let me know. We're back now. Update on my reading for the butterfly garden. Not great. Not great. I forgot my Kindle when we went to Florida, and like I was gonna be able to read anyways, but I just haven't been able to get back into reading, and I know why. I know it's because at night, after I put Charlotte to bed, just like we talked about, with food, I want to release. I just want to turn off. And for me right now, that's what scrolling does. That's what scrolling does. I can say that, I can own that, and a book doesn't give me the same sensation. Now, the thing is that it's not about the book giving me the same sensation. It's about me doing more things like I did this morning, so I don't need as big of a release and turn off at the end of the night. So it's less about me, stopping scrolling and more about me continuing to regulate during the day, so I don't need that at night. That's gonna help me naturally gravitate towards reading. So I'll keep you posted on that. And then, I don't know if you guys have been to Trader Joe's lately, if you have a Trader Joe's by you, but the holiday stuff is starting to come out, which is so exciting. I love all their holiday things, and these cookies are my absolute favorite. I think my second one after this is the peppermint covered JoJo's. Oh, those are so good, but these, oh my gosh, they're my favorite. They're my favorite, and it's exciting that the holidays are coming. I love the holidays. I live in Alabama, so we have 4 solid seasons, and so it's definitely turning to fall. And I think that's it. I think that that's it for today. Fill me in on your week. Fill me in on if anything hits. I would love to know. And hopefully when we chat next week, I'm a little bit more regulated. I feel like up here right now. Okay, well, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.